There are so many rookie mistakes I see aspiring slow fashion founders making when they're looking for their manufacturer. So I'm going to break down the mistakes in this episode and how you can prevent it. So let's dive in. If we're not working together and you're not leveraging my vetted and trusted database of mills and manufacturers all over the world, then you need to do your due diligence. Very similarly to my last podcast episode and my podcast episode before that, where I talked about rookie mistakes to avoid when you're finding a designer and also a mill. If you don't have a well-constructed garment, or if your product is falling apart because your manufacturer did not do a good job, your customer is not going to think like, oh, the manufacturer messed up. Like, they're going to think you messed up, and it's going to reflect poorly on your brand. So that's why it's so important to do your due diligence. And very similarly to sourcing materials, finding the perfect manufacturer and the perfect production partner is going to take time, especially if you're not working with someone and you don't have connections in the industry. So take the time to find the perfect fit. It may take months, it might take years, and I just want to level set expectations with you, because some people go into this thinking that, I don't know, it's going to take a month and they're going to find the right person, and they just kind of just end up signing up with whoever. But think of this kind of like a business marriage, right? Like, this is a person bringing your products to life, so you want to make sure that you are comfortable building a long-term relationship with them. So very similarly to my last episode where I talked about rookie mistakes folks make when they're finding a mill, the same thing happens with a manufacturer in terms of just signing up for whoever they first find, right? Like, that's a huge rookie mistake. You want to do your due diligence, you want to interview people, you want to vet people. And so it is a numbers game, very similarly to finding the perfect material and or mill for your brand. So you want to start a spreadsheet or a database or whatever you want to do to have a list, and you can ask your design team and leverage their connections to figure out who you may want to work with. You can leverage your friends, people in the industry, and just make a huge list, right? Like, you want to have as many options as possible. And while you're making this list, I want you to be open to locations, because another rookie mistake I commonly see is that people have biases about certain countries. Like, people automatically think made in China is bad, or people automatically think made in Italy is good. Like, there's really great factories in China. There's also really not great factories in China. Same thing in Italy. There's great, amazing factories in Italy, but also not so great factories in Italy. So the location of the country is not something you should be super concerned about. Instead, you should think about the expertise and the skill set. So as an example, I had a client of mine that was making fans, handheld fans, and Spain and France and China, like, those are the places where these products originated. So that's where we looked for production partners. On the flip side, like, I have another client that's making beautiful leather shoes, and Italy is a great place to source for that. So instead of being like, I hear a lot of scandals coming out of China, or I hear a lot of scandals coming out of Bangladesh, like, you really want to think through where the expertise is and then be really open to different locations. Once you gather up your list of manufacturers you may want to work with, you then want to put them through a vetting process. So have a variety of questions that you're going to ask them, and a variety of criteria that you're going to be ranking them on, such as expertise, like, can they actually make what you're looking for? What do they specialize in? What are their pricing? Do they have a minimum order quantity or MOQ? What are their lead times? How far out are they booking right now? Like, you want to know all this stuff. And another key thing you want to ask that some people forget to ask is that, when they are busy, what happens? Like, do they outsource that work and give it to someone else? There's a lot of things that can happen in that handover, because a lot of the times brands will vet this initial factory, but they don't vet the secondary factory because they don't even know sometimes it happens. So you want to know what happens there, and you want to make sure you are comfortable with the people they may be passing off your work to. So it's just something to keep in mind. And if you're getting stressed out about all this, no worries. I have an absolutely free How to Launch a Profitable Sustainable Fashion Brand masterclass. And in this masterclass, I detail how you can source sustainable materials and ethical manufacturers. So this podcast episode is a really good first base to kind of get you in the zone and thinking about the right things so that you are strategic in who you're choosing as your production partner. But we're going to dive deeper in this masterclass. And I have thought about charging for it, because it is not like those typical salesy masterclasses where there's no value provided. Like, I actually give you my strategies, but I've decided to keep it free because I want this knowledge to be accessible to everyone. So in this masterclass, you're going to learn how to create a product that people can't wait to get their hands on, You're also, like I mentioned, going to learn how to source sustainable materials and ethical manufacturers. And then last but not least, I'm going to teach you how to build an engaged community of customers that are dying to buy from you when you launch. So you will learn all of this at my absolutely free masterclass, and you can sign up and access it now at recloseted.com/masterclass. The link will be in the show notes and in the description for you. But go to the masterclass if you're feeling overwhelmed, because I break it down for you. There's slides and it's great. And I mentioned this in last week's podcast episode, but certifications are something that are interesting as well, because when it comes to finding an ethical and sustainable and really conscious and genuine production partner, you might look for certifications, as you rightfully should. However, it's not necessarily a red flag if they don't have it, because it could be certain situations like they don't have time right now to apply for it, and or they just don't have the money for it. Because don't forget, these certification companies are businesses. A lot of them are nonprofits, but they're still in it and they still need to survive by making money. So people do have to pay for these certifications, and there is a lengthy time process to apply. So not necessarily a red flag if someone doesn't have a certification they're looking for, but it's an invitation to dig deeper and really ask them what's going on. Is there a plan to get the certification? Do you still qualify and meet all the requirements? You really want to have a discussion with them and just ask as many questions as possible. I did a video about certification, so you can check out that video in the cards if you want to learn more. Now let's pretend you are in the final stages. You're deciding between two production facilities, or maybe you've really honed in on one and you're really excited about them. Before you decide to work with them and before you sign on the dotted line, I want to make sure you get them to make your final sample. You want to make sure that they can take your tech pack, make a sample for you, and you are happy with how it turned out and the quality of it. This is so important. Yes, you can ask for references. You can see other samples of work they've done, but until you actually see something they've produced that is going to be your product, that is, I think, the ultimate test of really seeing if it's a good fit. So definitely get them to do your sample. And if you do decide to move forward with them, make sure that final sample is 100% perfect. You are happy with everything before you move forward, because that is the sample that is going to be passed around on the cutting room floor, on the factory floor. Everyone's going to be referencing it. So you cannot be oh, the button needs to be over a little bit, or we're just going to add a pocket here, but they'll remember it. They will not remember it, okay? So the final sample needs to be perfect before you move forward. Do not make this rookie mistake. And another rookie mistake I commonly see is throughout the vetting process. Let's say, again, you're finalizing your production partner you want to work with and you want to do a factory visit. First of all, do not show up unannounced. That is not going to be received well. Instead, plan in advance. Tell them you want to visit, align on a date, and then go. That's the respectful way to do things. Don't just show up unannounced. And then for the factory visit, you want to take a note of a few things, right? Does everything look clean? Does everyone look happy? Just those kind of things. And you want to take a note of their process. How do they make things? How is your product going to go from idea to tech pack to, final product? What does that actually look like? And so if you can, I would highly recommend you visit your factory, especially if it's your first production launch, so you can be really comfortable with the end-to-end process and you can just gain a lot more knowledge. So highly recommend you do a factory visit if it's in your budget. If your factory is really far away from you and you need to travel and that's just not in your budget right now, that's okay. At least try to schedule a virtual chat and have them show you around the factory so you can see. It won't be the same as visiting itself, but it should give you an idea. So I hope this was helpful for you. Please do not make these rookie mistakes as you're looking for a manufacturer. And if you want to dive deeper and you also want to learn, how to create a beautiful product that people cannot wait to get their hands on, how you can source sustainable materials, and also how you can build an engaged community that is so excited to buy from you at launch, then make sure you watch my How to Launch a Profitable Sustainable Fashion Brand Masterclass. You can do it right now after you finish with this podcast episode, and the link again is recloseted.com/masterclass. I am so excited to see your sustainable fashion brand come to life, and together, let's transform the harmful fashion industry.